What's up, everybody? It's your man, Pastor Daryl, and I thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of I've Got Evidence, where we provide proof from the Word of God that you, my brother, you, my sister, are called to something greater. Your faith, your family, your fitness, and your finances are all areas that you and I, my friends, can be great in. And I'm going to stop at nothing by using this podcast to show that we are all called to something greater. Listen, today's episode is a bit troubling. It will be controversial. I pondered whether or not to release this episode, but a mentor of mine had to remind me of the difference between a stage and a platform. And the stage is one where someone goes to entertain people. People look to the stage to be entertained. But a platform is to be used to educate and empower individuals. And I realized that God has given me a tremendous platform with this podcast. And even now with trying new technologies by using the video that is available via YouTube. In other words, social media, when used properly, can be a major platform. And God has given me this platform, and I have to use this platform wisely. Today's episode is dealing with the tragic and senseless death of Austin Sterling, 37-year-old young man who was from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Now, I want to pray before I go into this, but if you're not wanting to hear Black Lives Matter, then this is not the podcast for you. It will not be scripted. A lot of this is coming from a place of all day praying about this. The podcast is delayed because I was unsure of how to address this, and I had to gather my thoughts first. But I challenge you, if you have ever been concerned about human life, especially the Black life, to listen to this podcast. Let's pray. Father in heaven, I need your spirit now to talk from a place of intellect and not just anger. I pray that every listener is challenged and motivated to be great in every area you've called us to, but realize that we are all called to be great, not just blacks, not just whites. All lives matter, but specifically Black Lives Matter. And I pray the message goes across with clarity and empowerment to do the right thing. We love you, God. Just guide this thing, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen. I awoke this morning to news via several of my social media outlets that a young man by the name of Austin Sterling had just been killed. And before jumping the gun and using his name as a hashtag to trend, or jump the gun on the situation, I immediately began to research what had taken place. And I didn't want to just take the information that I was receiving from my timeline to be fact. So I began to go to various news outlets and saw one video earlier today that basically showed a young man who had been given permission by an establishment to sell items outside of that store. The long and short of the situation is this. The police were allegedly called because the young man, Austin Sterling, had threatened someone with a gun. When the police arrived, someone was shooting cell phone video of the police and their interaction with Austin Sterling. And Mr. Sterling had asked a question with his hands in the air saying, "Hey, what did I do?" And at that point, you can hear in the video that Mr. Sterling was tased from what sounds like to be at least twice. When he was tased, after that, he was then tackled by the officer who was in front of him to the ground, first tackled into the car that was a silver vehicle that was there in front of them. and then tackled to the ground. There were two officers on the scene. These two officers then began to put Mr. Sterling and have his head and neck into the ground. And he was basically at that point restrained. Now, Mr. Sterling did have a gun in his back pocket, but according to the laws of the state of Louisiana, he did not need a permit for that weapon. He had obtained that weapon legally, and that the weapon was on him because individuals who are street salesmen, these individuals had been robbed, and Mr. Sterling had this weapon on him for protection, which is legal according to the state of Louisiana. After Mr. Sterling was tackled to the ground and restrained, one of the officers began to use expletives, then pulled out his weapon from his right hip and pointed it in Mr. Sterling's face and said, "If you effing move, I will shoot you," or something to that effect. It is unclear what took place next, but according to the earlier cell phone video that I saw, 5 shots rang out. And the young lady who was in the car filming the video dropped her phone and said, "I can't believe they just killed this boy." That video was disturbing. But then hours later, another video came showing a different angle. According to that first video was unclear if Austin was reaching for the gun that was in his back pocket or in his pocket. It was unclear. But the second video cleared everything up. Mr. Sterling did not reach for his weapon. And while he was restrained, maybe he was resisting, but while he was under restraint by 2 police officers, having been tased and tackled, was shot at point blank range in his chest. That second video showed Mr. Sterling's eyes rolling back and him waving his hand as just to say, what just happened? Austin Sterling was murdered in cold blood by Baton Rouge police officers. There's no other way to say it. Here's the challenging thing for me. At what point does the killing stop? We're outraged when a gorilla is shot, Harambe. All sorts of inquiries go into the death, and investigations go into why was this gorilla killed. But why don't we have the same outrage when a man's life is taken? People of color, my friends on social media, the people that I don't even know, of course, use the hashtag Black Lives Matter. They hashtag and put Austin Sterling's name in there to show solidarity. And that's our way of coming together. A couple of things trouble me. Again, this isn't scripted, and I'm just talking as I see fit. A couple of things trouble me. Number one, why are our senseless Black men, women, and children being gunned down violently by police with no action being taken against them? The second thing is, to my pilgrim or Caucasian counterparts, why do you have outrage over a gorilla when a star football player admits to dogfighting and killing dogs? You show outrage and demand that he be removed from the NFL, demand that all of his endorsements be stripped, demand that he serve prison time, demand that he never be allowed to play in the NFL again over killing animals. But when Black men are killed, Black women are killed, Katherine Johnson, Sandra Bland, when Black children, Tamir Rice, are killed, There's no outrage. People lose their lives senselessly in mass shootings at nightclubs and are bombed just going down the street, walking, or running a race. And all over social media, people have pray for London and pray for Boston and pray for Orlando. They change temporary profile pictures and they put filters on there. But where is the filter to say Austin Sterling was murdered? Black Lives Matter. So that's one of the issues. Here's my problem. For the Black community, and I'm speaking from a place of being a faith leader. This is not a church. People often wonder why the church is silent during these times. And I'm not speaking as a church, but I'm speaking as a leader in the faith community, one of the leaders in the faith community. My question is this: when does the killing stop? When does it stop? See, my challenge with it is this: we'll hashtag Black Lives Matter. We'll protest and we'll march. But then a couple of days later, we go back to doing silly selfies. We go back to looking for the stage because we want to be entertained. I got to admit, my podcast for today wasn't going to deal with this. I didn't know this was going to happen. My segment, What's Going On in the World, was going to deal with Kevin Durant going to the Golden State Warriors. And I was going to get into another faith topic, close it out with a reminder that my book is available for anybody who wants to be great, and end the podcast with some nice music. I understand that entertainment is a thing that the Black community needs, but now here it is. It's time to stop trying to be entertained as much, and now is the time to be educated. But not only is it a time to be educated, it is now time to act. So here's the problem. Police seem to have a license to kill on Black men, women, and children, and nothing is being done about it. Now we need to talk solution, because marching is not enough. Talking about it via social media is not enough. Now, I do appreciate the individuals who are bringing light to the matter via social media. Not everybody is meant to be on the front lines of battle. There are some individuals who have to Facebook and tweet and Snapchat their way to providing the other side of the media, because you do understand that individuals in Flint, Michigan still have dirty tap water, but it's not addressed in the media. So someone has to Facebook and tweet and keep these matters in our minds and at the forefront. So I applaud those individuals who they're doing that, and that's maybe all they can do. But for the other individuals who there's more that you can do other than Facebook and tweet, let's talk about that right now. There are only two solutions to this problem. And this is where this gets controversial. But I speak, again, as an authority in the faith community, as a leader in the faith community. And I'm not afraid of the consequence. Someone tried to get me to not do this podcast because they said, hey, Pastor Darrell, you're a motivational speaker in addition to being a preacher, and what you're wanting to talk about can offend certain individuals, which can ultimately impact the money that you receive. Doors can be closed because of what you're trying to address. And I wrestled with this thing. I ain't going to front y'all. I wrestled with this thing all day long to see, should I address it? Should I not address it? I vacillated between addressing it and not addressing it. And then again, I had to say, is this a stage, this podcast, or is this a platform? And this platform is to let you know that you are called to something greater, which means I have to educate you and empower you and inform you on how you can be great. This death, the senseless death from of Austin Sterling, definitely impacts your faith. Because people all over the world, well, at least people of color anyway, are asking, Lord, what now? It definitely impacts your family, because now here it is, there is a wife and there are children who will never see their husband, never see their father, their uncle, their brother, their loved one again. To the Sterling family, I reach out to you. I'm praying for you. And if there's anything that I can personally do, reach out, let me know. We got to talk solutions. See, this impacts your finances, and we'll talk about that in a moment. It impacts your fitness because my chest has been tight all day from this senseless killing. Let's talk solutions. Solution number one, we know the problem. Black men, women, boys, and girls are being killed without recourse. Here's how we solve the problem. The first way we're going to solve the problem, ladies and gentlemen, is by voting. Now, before you turn this podcast off saying, hey, I've heard it all before, let me tell you now that voting is going to be one of it's not the best way, but it's the way that I'm addressing first. We have a responsibility to, every time there is an election, to go and vote. Do you realize people during the civil rights movement died for the right for colored men and women to vote? Don't let their death be in vain. Vote your city officials and your county leaders and your civic leaders. On that, let me just tell you really quick, I want to thank my friend Natasha Johnson Gregg for pointing this out. Watch this. The city of, and I'm reading this, the city of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, will hold elections for mayor and city council on December 10th, 2016. A primary election will take place on November the 8th, 2016. The filing deadline for candidates who wish to run in this election is July 22nd of 2016. All 12 city council seats are up for election. You know what that means? Because people died for your right and my right to vote, you need to vote. But not only do you need to vote, if you are gifted, some of you are gifted in just getting things done. You have the ability to network, you know people, that's your innate gift that God has given you to get stuff done. I need for you now to use the gift that God has given you. And instead of just voting, how about you run for office? Don't just sit back behind the computer and tweet Black Lives Matter and tweet about how you're angry about the situation. Get in there and do something about it. If you can't, if you're not gifted enough to be the politician, at least vote for the proper politician. So that's the first way. Here's the second way that we're going to stop the killing, or at least put a strong halt to it. People don't want to talk about this, but we don't realize as African Americans that we have a $1 trillion buying power. Yet we don't own the things that we buy. The first way we're going to stop is by voting. But the second way we're going to take back our young men, women, boys, and girls is by our dollar. Now, that's going to rub some people the wrong way, because you say you've heard it all before. You say that, oh, well, there's no way my dollar matters. Let me tell you how it matters. I was talking to my wife about this just yesterday. All of our Black women are beautiful, and they spend a lot of money on that beauty. One way they spend money to maintain their beauty is by getting their nails done. But when they go to get their nails done, why? Ask yourself this question. Why is it someone that doesn't look like them doing their nails? How is it that an Asian, no disrespect to the Asian community, but how is it that an Asian knows more about Black nails than Black women? Now, I understand nails should be nails. Yes, but there's also a difference. For example, there's a difference between how a Caucasian cuts their hair and how an African American will cut their hair. Well, so it is with nail care. There is a difference in how Caucasians do their nails and how African Americans do their nails. African American women are beautiful black women, will go into an Asian shop that is located in a black community to get their nails done. Why aren't blacks owning the nail salons? I'll give you an example of how this has been put into practice successfully. There was a city called Tulsa in the state of Oklahoma. It was commonly referred to as being Black Wall Street. And the long and short of Black Wall Street is this: African Americans owned all of the businesses. We own the hospitals, we own the banks, we own the grocery stores, we own the car dealerships, we own the educational system, we owned it all. Don't you think it's strange that in the African American community, other businesses come here to do business, but we don't own the business? That has to be contrived from somewhere. And I'm here today to tell you that it's not just about, because somebody out there is saying, well, Pastor Darrell, it's not all about the nails and all about vanity. I'm just giving you an example of how we can stop the madness. Why? Because nails are an industry we spend so much money on, yet we don't own the industry. How many hundreds of dollars do we spend on clothes and paraphernalia, yet we don't own the clothing shop? All I'm saying to you is this: we need to go back to a place like Tulsa, Oklahoma, and reclaim our black communities. The black dollar, while we have a $1 trillion buying power, the dollar leaves the community, the African American community, in 15 minutes. While in Caucasian and Asian and Hispanic communities, the dollar stays in their community for up to a whopping 28 days. Yet it leaves our community in 15 minutes, which is why you see rundown streets, which is why you see all the schools that are not being taken care of, because our money doesn't stay in our community. But imagine this, if you would. Having this, I'm just using this as an example, having five women who go to the same Asian nail shop who say for the next 3 months, I did research on this, it only takes 3 months to become a certified and qualified nail technician. 3 months. Imagine, if you would, five women who go to the same shop say for the next 3 months, I'm going to sacrifice and do my own nails at home while I learn how to become a nail technician. At the end of that 3 months, open up our own nail salon in our own community so that we can own something. You see, you thought just because slavery was over, that was the end of it. But you see how it was systematically done to where blacks don't own anything. We have the highest credit card debt. Why? Because they don't want us to own anything. And when I say they, apply whatever person you want to, or people group, 1%, that you want to apply it to. But the reality is this: we don't own it, but yet we spend it. How do we spend? I'm going to prove to you really briefly, for those of you who are listening to this podcast and watching this via YouTube. If you are sports fans, remember the NBA had a situation a couple of years ago with an individual by the name of Donald Sterling. He was an NBA owner who made racist remarks. And after those racist remarks were finished, the players and other sponsors said, okay, well, first of all, it was the players. The players said, we can't support this individual. African Americans pulled their dollar back. Once we pulled our dollar back, it was the sponsors that got involved and said, okay, Donald Sterling has to go. Our dollar matters. Black lives matter, but the black dollar matters just as much. Maybe not just as much, but it's high. It ranks up there. Let's take our dollar back. Let's take our communities back. Let's take our schools back. Our educational system that's not teaching us about our history anyway. Teaching us history they want us to know. Killing our communities with standardized tests. Who do you think the standardized tests were meant to target, to keep behind? Coming up with a new standard of math called Common Core. Common Core is not common to anyone, but who do you think it's affecting the most? Studies show African Americans. Our dollar matters, y'all. And the way we take back our streets, we own the businesses, we own the grocery stores, and we own the banks, and we own the credit unions, and we own all of our establishments, which means now that we have these towns that we own, we can now hire our own law enforcement. And we can make sure we train these law enforcement officers to police the right way. Listen, I'm just as outraged as the next person. But now it's time to stop talking about stuff and doing something about it. I challenge every one of you to become business owners. It's not just about owning a business. I understand everybody may not be entrepreneurial, but if you're not entrepreneur, you can at least support your brothers and sisters, your Black brothers and sisters in the businesses that they are starting. But for those of you who say you can't start a business, this isn't talking about, this isn't a business podcast. This is a solutions. We're in solution mode now. Let me show you how easy it is to be able to start a business, though. If you go to your big box home improvement store, at the start of the spring, they start selling fruits and vegetables that you can plant. For the last couple of years, I've been growing fruits and vegetables in my garden, in my backyard. Let me tell you, one of the easiest fruits to grow is a tomato. It's a fruit because it has seeds. One of the easiest fruits to grow is a tomato. And at the big box stores, they sell tomatoes that come in packages with 6 different plants in the one package. And that one package is only $3. And those 6 little plants will yield hundreds of tomatoes if you put some water on it, some fertilizer, and put some sunlight on it. Make sure it has full sun. Now, your neighbor will go to their favorite grocery store and spend about $5 for 4 tomatoes. But what were to happen if in the end of March, early April, you plant those tomato plants into the ground, and then by July and August, you're reaping a harvest from what you put into the ground? See, it's not going to be an overnight fix. It takes some time. You can't reap and sow in the same season. But imagine if you planted something in the ground in the end of March, early April, and by July and August, now you're ready to reap the harvest. Your neighbor who is going to go to the grocery store, their favorite store, and spend $5 for 4 tomatoes can shop now from your backyard to get their tomatoes. Now that $5 is going to you. You've made your money back because you're going to yield hundreds of tomatoes off of those 6 plants. Now your family is eating tomatoes. Now you're profiting from the tomatoes that you were able to sell. And it's your neighbor who more than likely looks like you. Now you're an entrepreneur. You went from August to selling 4 tomatoes to September, maybe you sell 8 tomatoes. To then October, maybe you sell 12, and then the following year you're selling 50 and 100 tomatoes. But now you have a profitable business. Something that only cost you $3 is now feeding your family both financially and physically. And then what if your next door neighbor, you have the market on the tomatoes, but your neighbor who looks like you, who's African American, let's say you don't want to plant the whole salad garden, but you have a lock on the tomatoes. Well, what if you show your neighbor how to plant lettuce? Now your neighbor has the lettuce, and the one across the street from you has the cucumbers, and the one down the block from you who's still in your same neighborhood, they have the other ingredient. Yes, now your neighborhood is the salad mecca, so to speak. You're all entrepreneurs, but you're all buying from each other. And now the dollar is circulating in your community more than 15 minutes. Imagine the shock, if the dollar went from the African American community from 15 minutes to just 1 hour. I bet you people will take notice. And what if that 1 hour turned into 8 hours? And what if that 8 hours turned into a whole day? And what if that day turned into a week, and that week turned into the month that the dollar circulates in other communities? Listen, I don't want to be long-winded with this thing, man, but I'm just here to tell you the only two viable solutions to stopping the senseless killing of our black men, women, and children is going to be make your voice heard by going to the polls and voting. Not only voting, but if you're qualified and capable, and sometimes you just got to get some on-the-job training. Put your name in the hat to be elected to a county office. If some of you have degrees in political science, but instead of getting a degree to go to somebody and say, will you hire me? Start your own. Put your name in the hat. Yeah, you got to ask people to vote for you, but you're saying, I'm not just going to vote. I'm going to use the gifts God gave me to get stuff done and say, you know what, vote for me. I want to be the change that you want to see. So go and vote. And if possible, put yourself on the ballot. Again, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where the senseless killing of Austin Sterling took place, you have up until July 22nd to put your name in the hat for all 12 city council seats and positions. Get it done. And the second way, probably the most important way that you are going to make a difference in ending the violence against black lives is by your dollar. Now, again, it's not going to happen overnight, but I challenge you to start a business. Black people, start a business. And if you can't start a business, support black business. Support your own. Why do we run to everybody else? Because we don't support each other. Don't you know that that's contrived as well? See, if one slave wanted to run, they would maybe that slave will find freedom, but if not, they would catch him and they would try to use that slave as an example to say, if you run, then this is what's going to happen to you. So what does that do? That discourages people from running. So when you get another slave who decides to say, you know what, I want freedom, and they try to rally the troops, you say, no, you on your own, bro. Not all thinking that, what quality of life are you living as a slave? See, it's contrived for them to separate us and not unite us. We didn't have a crab in a barrel mentality before slavery and before those ships sailed to Africa and robbed us and stripped us of our land. But they gave it to us. They gave us the Jesus they wanted to give us. They gave us certain things, and now here it is. They have, this is what we have, and we say that that's golden, but everything that glitters ain't gold. Let's reclaim our streets. Let's reclaim our communities with our vote and voice, but most importantly, our dollar. I love you with the love of Jesus Christ, man. Sterling family, I love you. I'm praying for you. I'm going to keep using this platform to motivate, encourage, and educate and empower individuals to do the right thing and to be great in their faith, family, fitness, and finances. I just pray that somebody heard this and is willing to now do what it takes. Don't just be an armchair quarterback and say what you think should be done and criticize people who are actually coming up with solutions to do stuff. See, armchair quarterbacks have never played the game, or likely don't even want to, and most likely don't even want to play the game. But they're busy telling everybody else how to play the game. It's the players who put their blood, their sweat, their tears on the line to play the game they love. And I'm challenging you. Don't be an armchair quarterback anymore. Get in the game. Use the platform that God has given you via social media to educate, empower, and encourage each other. If you want a stage, well, you know what they say about stages. People usually only get 15 minutes of fame. But if there's anybody who's following you via social media, use the 1 follower or the 1,000,000 followers that you have to let them know that they are called to something greater. And I'm going to keep doing the same thing. I love you with the love of Jesus Christ. Always remember, my brother, my sister, you are called to something greater. If by chance you want a resource to show you how to get to the next level and how to maybe start a business or be successful in your business, I invite you to go to my website, www.darylpalmas.org. Get a copy of my latest book entitled Called to Something Greater. that will push you into the great things that God has for you. Till next time, my brothers and sisters, grace and peace in the name of the Lord. Go and be great, because Black Lives Matter.